Welcome to episode 188 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by 17 Laws Guy. This May 7, 1986, Seville, European Cup Final, Barcelona against Steaua București. For Barcelona, this is supposed to be the night. The final is in Spain. The crowd is overwhelmingly Catalan. English clubs are absent after Heysel. Juventus are gone. The path to the club's first European Cup looks open. But Steaua have not come to Seville to play in Barcelona's story. They have come to suffocate it. For 120 minutes, the Romanian champions reduced the final to frustration. No goals, few clear chances, and a stadium growing more irritated by the minute. Then comes the penalty shootout, and Helmuth Duckadam turns himself into one of the most unlikely immortals in European football. Barcelona take 4 penalties. Duckadam saves all 4, and Steaua win 2-0 in the shootout, and for the first time, the European Cup crosses the Iron Curtain. This is the story of how Barcelona's expected coronation became Steaua's great heist, and how one goalkeeper on one night in Seville gave communist Eastern Europe its most astonishing club triumph. But how did we get here? We start with a shadow over the whole season. Heysel. The 1985 European Cup final between Juventus and Liverpool had ended in catastrophe before it had properly begun. 39 people died. Juventus won the trophy, but English football was removed from Europe. That changed the tournament immediately. From 1977 to 85, English clubs had reached 8 of 9 European Cup finals and won 7. Liverpool, Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, then Liverpool again. The European Cup had almost become an English property deed. Now Everton, English champions in 85, were not there. No English club was. So who would fill the vacuum? Italy, surely. Juventus were holders. Serie A was powerful, tactical, and glamorous. Italy even had 2 entrants, Juventus as champions of Europe, and Hellas Verona as champions of Italy. But Verona were drawn against Juventus and went out. Then Juventus met Barcelona in the quarterfinals and went out too. But how about Bayern Munich? No, they lost to Anderlecht. The old order had opened, and through that opening came Steaua. Only once before had a club from the east of Europe reached the European Cup final, Partizan Belgrade in 1966, when they led Real Madrid in Brussels before losing 2-1. But Steaua were different. They were Romania's army club, from inside Ceausescu's communist sporting system, part of what the world of so-called state amateurs, players officially framed through the state, but trained, protected, and organized like elite professionals. Steaua had won the 1984-85 Divizia A by 2 points from Dinamo București. The road to Seville was never easy. Vejle of Denmark, 1-1 away, then 4-1 at home. Honved of Hungary, 1-0 down away, then 4-1 at home. Kuusisilahti of Finland, a surprising 0-0 in Bucharest, then an 86th minute, a winner away. Anderlecht in the semi-final, 1-0 down in Brussels, then 3-0 in Bucharest. In every round, Steaua had to solve for something. Barcelona's road was dramatic too. Sparta Prague survived on away goals. Porto survived on away goals again. Juventus beaten 2-1 on aggregate. Then IFK Göteborg. Barca lost the first leg in Sweden 3-0. At the Camp Nou, Pichi Alonso scored a hat-trick. The tie went to penalties. Carrasco missed. Urruti saved from Roland Nilsson. Then Urruti himself scored. Barcelona were going to Seville. That is why the final felt like destiny. The final was in Spain. The crowd was overwhelmingly Catalan. English clubs were absent. Juventus were gone. Barcelona's first European Cup seemed there to be taken. But Steaua's manager, Aymeric Yedjene, had no interest in Barcelona's destiny. His side sat deep, compressed the space, closed the midfield, and turned Barca's ambition into repetition. Miodrag Belodetici read danger calmly. Laszlo Beloni worked. Lakatos ran. Pitushka battled, and Duckadam waited. Barcelona wanted style, but Steaua gave them geometry. The match became almost anti-football to the crowd. Barca had the ball, the noise, the expectation, but no solution. Venables tried to change it. With few minutes of normal time left, he substituted Bernd Schuster. That became the emotional rupture. Schuster did not sit down and suffer with the rest. No, he walked away from the bench and reportedly left the stadium. In extra time, Steve Archibald was taken off too. Barcelona's two biggest foreign names were no longer on the pitch when the final reached penalties. And that left the night to Duckadam. The shootout begins with Steaua's Mihail Magyaru. Urutu saves. Now Barcelona can lead. Alexanko shoots, but Duckadam saves. Still 0-0. Steaua's Berloni takes the second, but Urutu saves again. And it is back to Barcelona. Pedraza shoots. Duckadam saves again. 4 penalties taken, 4 saves, no goals. Then Marius Lakatos steps forward for Steaua and finally breaks the spell, 1-0. Pichi Alonso, the semi-final hero against Göteborg, has to answer. Duckadam saves. Gabriel Balint makes it 2-0. And now Marcos Alonso must score to keep Barcelona alive. But Duckadam saves again. 4 Barcelona penalties, 4 Duckadam saves. There are penalty shootouts that decide matches. Then there are penalty shootouts that create a name that never leaves history. Steaua are champions of Europe. Barcelona, in front of what was supposed to be their crowd, have lost the most winnable European final of their lives. So what did it mean? Well, it was the high point of Eastern Bloc club football. Only 5 days earlier, Dynamo Kiev had beaten Atletico Madrid 3-0 in the Cup Winners' Cup final. That was Lobanovsky's Dynamo, Soviet then, Ukrainian in today's historical memory. Then Steaua won the European Cup. When the Super Cup was eventually played, Steaua beat Dynamo 1-0 in Monaco through Georgia Hagi. Europe's first trophy and second trophy were in Eastern hands, then the Super Cup too. This was peak state football. Army clubs, police clubs, ministry clubs, and factory clubs operating inside systems that could keep players, centralized training, and build sides that Western clubs could not simply buy apart. It never happened quite like this again. Steaua stayed powerful. Domestically, they became almost untouchable, winning title after title in the late 1980s and producing one of the great unbeaten league runs in European football. In Europe, they were not a one-night miracle. They reached the semi-finals in 1988 and the European Cup final again in 89, where Sachi's Milan destroyed them 4-0. Then Ceausescu fell, and with him fell the political world that had made Staua's structure possible. The club survived, but the identity later fractured into one of Europe's strangest legacy disputes. Steaua, CSA Steaua, FCSB, court rulings, crests, records, symbols. Today, the 1986 triumph is not only a football memory, it's an ownership of history argument. That feels appropriate somehow, because Steaua 1986 was never only a team, it was a system. And then there's Duckadam. The hero of Seville should have had the world open in front of him. Instead, his career almost ended immediately after its greatest nights. That summer, during a barbecue with friends in Arad, he slipped on the grass, fell onto his right arm, and soon developed a blood clot that blocked circulation. Surgery followed. He became Romanian Footballer of the Year in 1986, but the match that made him immortal was also effective with the summit he never had the chance to climb beyond. That makes the legend even stranger. Some players built greatness over 15 years. Duckadam built his in 4 dives. He later remained a symbol of Steaua and Romanian football, served in club roles, and carried the hero of Seville identity for the rest of his life. When he passed in December 2024 at the age of 65, the obituaries did not need much explanation. 4 penalties, 4 saves, Barcelona, Seville. That was enough. For Barcelona, the meaning was trauma. Venables had won La Liga in 84-85, the club's first league title for 11 years. He had taken them to the European Cup final. That should have made him untouchable. Instead, Seville became the wound. He continued for a while, but he was gone early in the 1987-88 season. Schuster's relationship with the club never fully recovered either. Eventually, he crossed to Real Madrid, which tells you how poisonous things had become. And Barça entered one of those pre-revolutionary phases where a club knows the old model has failed, but does not yet know the new one. 2 years later, Johan Cruyff returned as manager. Then came the Dream Team. Then came Wembley in 1992. That is the cruel Barcelona symmetry. In 1986, a goalkeeper humiliates them in Seville and still have no European Cup. In 1992, Ronald Koeman scores at Wembley and they finally have one. The bridge between those moments is pain. Seville was not the only cause of the Cruyff revolution, but it was one of the wounds that made revolution feel necessary. Before we go, 3 things to take away from May 7, 1986. First, Steaua's win was not pretty, but it's a tactical achievement. They took Barcelona's near-home final, killed the rhythm, survived 120 minutes, and trusted the shootout. Second, Duckadam did something almost beyond football logic. 4 Barcelona penalties, 4 saves, and the European Cup decided by one goalkeeper's reading of fear. Third, this was the peak of communist European club power. Dynamo Kiev won the Cup Winners' Cup. Steaua won the European Cup. Steaua later won the Super Cup. And then, within a few years, the political world behind those clubs was gone. On this day in 1986, Steaua București held Barcelona 0-0 in Seville. Helmuth Duckadam saved all 4 Barça penalties, and the European Cup crossed the Iron Curtain for the first time. That is all for the episode 188 of OTD, your daily dose of soccer history by a 17-lost guy. Tomorrow, go to May 8, 1954, and to the founding of the Asian Football Confederation on the sidelines of the Second Asian Games in Manila. See you tomorrow.